Okay, hello everybody. It is August 6, 2025, and you may have noticed that there are a lot of rumblings all of a sudden about a possible ceasefire or some sort of peace deal in Ukraine. 5 months ago, I did a video talking about whether or not there would be a ceasefire, and what I said was at the time, it was possible, and I gave the reasons, but I found it to be very, very unlikely then. I also did a follow-up video in which I said that I thought, when would the war end? I thought late this year, early next year. I still hold to that. What I wanted to address is the possibility of a short-term ceasefire, and will that be coming sometime in the next week or so? I'm sure you've kept up with the news about, Trump's been putting the deadlines out, and he's doing the tariffs on India for buying Russian oil, so forth and so on. Although those tariffs don't go into effect for 3 weeks. So there's more time than perhaps it seems. But here's why I think it's possible. You may remember, if you saw my video about whether or not a ceasefire was going to happen, they did 5 months ago. I stated 2 reasons why I thought it was possible, even though I found it to be highly unlikely. The first reason was I said Putin needs to cool off his economy. His economy was clearly overheating, and when an economy overheats too much, it then goes into a meltdown phase. Well, back then, he had the possibility of stopping it before it hit the meltdown phase if he got a ceasefire. He didn't. The meltdown is here. The Russian economy has begun melting down. Now, this does not mean it's going to collapse tomorrow. This is not going to be like Lehman Brothers in September 2008 happening in Russia in the next week or two. But over the next several months, the Russian economy is going to probably steadily decline, and this meltdown is going to get out of control. Right now, today, it is at least theoretically possible, if Russia can get a ceasefire, that they can do something to manage this and get ahead of it somewhat. It really can't be stopped. They're looking at a very nasty recession coming pretty much as soon as the war is over. But right now, they still have at least some tools left in the toolkit so they can do something about it. A lot of it can't be avoided. It's too late for that, but some of it still can be. That's not going to be true for much longer. The woman who's in charge of the Russian central bank, whose name I cannot pronounce, nor can I remember it right now, but she is a freaking genius, has been really hammering the alarm bell the last couple of months about the problems in their economy. She is basically out of options. So that's the first reason why I think that this is a possibility, is that the meltdown has started. Again, many, many months it has to go before we hit probably the crescendo of it, but it has begun. The second reason that you may remember from my video back in March was I talked about Putin needing to refit his army. His army was in bad shape. It was worn out. It had all kinds of shortages of equipment, supplies. He didn't do that. He launched his big summer offensive. He did not launch the offensive that I thought he was going to. I expected him to, or the Russian general staff, I should say, to focus their remaining resources, their tanks, their armored vehicles, their ground attack vehicles, their artillery, ground attack aircraft, and their better infantry units, and try to focus them in one area and achieve a major breakthrough somewhere. Think something along the lines of, at least philosophically, Montgomery's plan with Operation Market Garden in 1944, or another example might be the Battle of Leipzig in 1813, where the Prussians, Russians, and Austrians decided to all gang up on Napoleon's Grande Armée. They didn't go for that strategy. They went for a broad front strategy, and they launched limited attacks, or somewhat limited attacks, in Sumy, in Kherson, and around Pokrovsk. They have made some small gains in those areas, nothing major, and they have really bled themselves out. I believe their idea was that since the Ukrainians were themselves badly depleted, they thought that by spreading the attacks out around a broader front, hitting on different areas, sometimes literally hundreds of kilometers apart, it would stretch the Ukrainian defenses and resources too thin and prevent the Ukrainians from massing their remaining resources somewhere where they could make a stand. Think the Spartans at Thermopylae, something like that. Instead, so that I think that was their idea. Spread it out, create holes. The problem with this strategy is it precludes the possibility of a major breakthrough. Even if you do get a breakthrough, even if you punch a hole in the Ukrainian lines and there's no defenses in front of you, you lack the resources to exploit said breakthrough. You don't have the armor, the logistics, the manpower to drive, 50, 60, 70, 80 kilometers deep in just a few days. So that's kind of why I didn't think they would do it, but that is what they did. The result they got was not collapsing the Ukrainian front by wearing them out, but rather they bled out what's left of their supplies of armor, artillery, ground attack aircraft, frankly, manpower, ammunition, The campaign season is in wind down mode. They still have another month or so left of good weather, long days, but most of the campaign season is over now. So if you are Russia, the opportunity to refit your army and launch a mid or late summer offensive that they had back in March is gone. You cannot do that now. Their army is bled out. They're looking at another long, hard winter of grinding attritional warfare, and they will not have the equipment or manpower reserves necessary to launch another major offensive next summer. They're just not going to have it. The Russian war machine, vaunted as it is by Tucker Carlson, has broken down, past tense. Now, that doesn't mean they lack the ability to fight. They can fight, but are they going to have some big breakthrough or something like that? Probably not. I'll give you an example. They appear to have, over the last week or so, finally finished taking Chasiv Yar. Okay, so what? Big deal. Well, the reason is Chasiv Yar is about 11 kilometers from Bakhmut. You may remember hearing about Bakhmut 2 years ago, because it has taken the Russians 2 years to conquer the 11 kilometers between Bakhmut and Chasiv Yar. You may also have been hearing about Pokrovsk. You've probably been hearing about that for around the last 13 months or so, because that's how long the Russians have been trying to take Pokrovsk. They probably got 75% of that operation done. They will eventually get Pokrovsk, probably going to take a little while longer. They've lost tens of thousands of men, hundreds of armored vehicles. I mean, they've lost more men fighting for Pokrovsk than we did in Iraq and Afghanistan combined, and by a healthy margin, I might add. So basically right now, the Russian army is spent. The Russian economy is in meltdown mode. If you are Putin, the opportunity to do a ceasefire, cool off your economy, refit your army, and make a big push, 3, 4, 5 months later, that's gone. He's lost that opportunity. But he can still maybe save what's left of what he has and somewhat manage the coming economic decline. That's about the best he can do right now. He may opt to do that. Now, he may not. Historically, he has not been willing to do that, but we will see. One thing with anything involving Trump is incredibly unpredictable. Vladimir Putin, by the way, does not appear to have even the slightest interest in saving what's left of his young men. Russia has always been very strict on their immigration. They're going to import over 1 million Indian men to fill jobs that they can't, because Russia's out of men. And so he's sending hundreds of them to the grave every day in Ukraine. It's just batshit crazy. But point being, is a ceasefire possible in the immediate future? I would say yes, I think so, because Russia is in that bad a shape. Russia will, of course, declare their benevolence, that they've won. Very common political tactic is when you have screwed up massively, you declare victory. You say, we won, this went so good, and it's just unbelievable how well we did, and so we're done, we're out of here. That will be the propaganda spin if this happens. But one say, I actually do think it's possible. Would this mark a true end to the war? Absolutely not. This war will not end that quickly or that easily, but we might be looking at a real ceasefire.